Okay, guys, so we left off. We're on chapter 16 in the Bible of Exodus, CSB version. We left off with the Israelites finally left out of Egypt, and Pharaoh chased them down. And Moses parted the Red Sea. They walked through, and then essentially Moses put his hand back out, and it closed the Red Sea, and everybody died. All the Egyptians pretty much died trying to chase down the Israelites. And then the Israelites were all thankful, so they're singing songs to God. And then they were like, grumbling because they didn't have any food or water. So then God is pretty much providing them water. And now we're on chapter 16, where He's going to start providing them food and stuff. And we're getting into the story of Moses and them in the wilderness. So let's get started. Chapter 16. The entire Israelite community departed from Elim and came to the wilderness of Sin, which is between Elim and Sinai, on the 15th day of the second month after they had left the land of Egypt. The entire Israelite community grumbled against Moses and Aaron in the wilderness. Remember, Moses and Aaron are brothers. The Israelites said to them, "If we only had died by the Lord's hand in the land of Egypt, when we sat by the pots of meat and ate all the bread we wanted, instead you brought us into the wilderness to make this whole assembly die of hunger." Then the Lord said to Moses, "I'm going to rain bread from heaven for you. The people are to go out each day and gather enough for the day. This way I will test them to see whether or not they will follow my instructions. On the sixth day, when they prepare what I bring in, it will be twice as much as they gather on the other days." So Moses and Aaron said to the Israelites, "This evening you will know that it is the Lord who brought you out of the land of Egypt. And in the morning you will see the Lord's glory, because He has heard your complaints about Him. For who are we that we complain about us? No, for who are we that you complain about us?" Moses continued. "The Lord will give you meat to eat this evening and all the bread you want in the morning, for He has heard the complaints that you are raising against Him. Who are we? Your complaints are not against us, but against the Lord." Then Moses told Aaron, "Say to the entire Israelite community, 'Come before the land, for He has heard your complaints.'" As Aaron was speaking to the entire Israelite community, they turned toward the wilderness, and there in a cloud the Lord's glory appeared. The Lord spoke to Moses, "I have heard the complaints of the Israelites. Tell them, at twilight you will eat meat, and in the morning you will eat bread until you are full. Then you will know I am the Lord your God." So at the evening quail came and covered the camp. In the morning there was a layer of dew all around the camp. When the layer of the dew evaporated, there were fine flakes on the desert surface, as fine as frost on the ground. When the Israelites saw it, they asked one another, What is it?" Because they didn't know what it was. Moses told them, "It is the bread of the Lord that has given you to eat. This is what the Lord has commanded. Gather as much of it as each person needs to eat. You will take 2 quarts per individual, according to the number of people each of you has in his tent." So the Israelites did this. Some gathered a lot, some a little. When they measured it by quarts, the person who gathered a lot had no surplus, and the person who gathered a little had no shortage. Each gathered as much as they needed to eat. Moses said to them, "No one is to let any of it remain until morning." But they did not listen to Moses. Some people left part of it until morning, and it bred worms and stank. Therefore Moses was angry with them. They gathered it every morning. Each gathered as much as he needed to eat. But when the sun grew hot, it melted. On the sixth day, they gathered twice as much food, 4 quarts apiece. And all the leaders of the community came and reported this to Moses. He told them, "This is what the Lord said: Tomorrow is a day of complete rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you want to bake, and boil what you want to boil, and set aside everything left over to be kept until morning." So they set aside until morning, as Moses commanded, and it didn't stink or have maggots in it. "Eat it today," Moses said, "because today is a Sabbath to the Lord. Today you won't find any in the field. For 6 days you will gather it, but on the seventh day, the Sabbath, there will be none." Yet on the seventh day some people went out to gather, but they didn't find any. Then the Lord said to Moses, "How long will you refuse to keep my commandments and instructions? Understand that the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore on the sixth day he will give you 2 days worth of bread. Each of you stay where you are. No one is to leave his place on the seventh day." So the people rested on the seventh day. The house of Israel named the substance manna. It resembled a coriander seed and was white, and it tasted like wafers made from honey. Moses said, "This is what the Lord has commanded. 2 quarts of it are to be prepared throughout your generations, so that they may see the bread I fed you in the wilderness when I brought you out of the land of Egypt." Moses told Aaron, "Take a container and put 2 quarts of manna in it. Then place it before the Lord to be preserved throughout your generations. As the Lord commanded Moses, Aaron placed it before the testimony to be preserved. The Israelites ate manna for 40 years until they came into the inhabited land. They ate manna until they reached the border of the land of Canaan. They used a measure called an omer, which held 2 quarts. Chapter 17. What chapter did we start on? 16. We started on 16. Okay. Chapter 17. The Israelites, the entire Israelite community left the wilderness of sin, moving from one place to next according to the Lord's commandment. They camped at the Rephidim, but there was no water for the people to drink. So the people complained to Moses, "Give us water to drink." "Why are you complaining to me?" Moses replied to them. "Why are you testing the Lord?" But the people thirsted for water and grumbled against Moses. They said, "Why do you ever bring us up from Egypt to kill us and our children and our livestock with thirst?" Then Moses cried out to the Lord, "What shall I do to these people? In a little while they will stone me." The Lord answered Moses, "Go on ahead of the people and take some of your elders of Israel with you. Take the staff you struck in the Nile with in your hand and go. I am going to stand there in front of you on the rock at the Horeb. When you hit the rock, water will come out and it will come out of it, and the people will drink it." Moses did this in the sight of the elders of Israel. He named the place Massah and Meribah, because the Israelites complained and because they tested the Lord, saying, "Is the Lord among us or not?" At Rephidim, Amalek came and fought against Israel. Moses said to Joshua, "Select some men for us to go and fight against Amalek. Tomorrow I will stand on the hilltop with God's staff in my hand." So Joshua did as Moses told him, and fought against Amalek, while Moses, Aaron, and Hur went up to the top of the hill. While Moses held up his hand, Israel prevailed, but whenever he put his hand down, Amalek prevailed. When Moses' hands grew heavy, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat down on it. Then Aaron and Hur supported his hand, one on one side and one on the other, so that his hands remained steady until the sun went down. So Joshua defeated Amalek and his army with the sword. Then the Lord said to Moses, "Write this down on a scroll as a reminder and recite it to Joshua. It will completely blot out the memory of Amalek under heaven." And Moses built an altar and named it, "The Lord is my banner." He said, "Indeed, my hand is lifted up toward the Lord's throne. The Lord will be at war with Amalek from generation to generation." Chapter 18. Moses' father-in-law, Jethro, the priest of the Midian, heard about everything that God had done for Moses and for God's people of Israel when the Lord brought Israel out of Egypt. Now Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, had taken in Zipporah, Moses' wife, after he had sent her back, along with her 2 sons, one of whom was named Gershom, because Moses had said, "I have been a resident and alien for a foreign land." And the other is Eleazar, because he had said that the God of my father, was my helper and rescued me from Pharaoh's sword. Moses' father-in-law Jethro, along with Moses' wife and sons, Moses' sons, came to him in the wilderness where he was camped at the mountaintop, the mountain of God. He sent word to Moses, "I, your father-in-law Jethro, am coming to you with your wife and your 2 sons." So Moses went out to meet his father-in-law, bowed down, and then kissed him. They asked each other how they had been and went into a tent. Moses recounted his father-in-law all that the Lord had done to Pharaoh and the Egyptians for Israel's sake, all the hardships that confronted them on the way, and how the Lord rescued them. Jethro rejoiced over all the good things the Lord had done for Israel when he rescued them from the power of the Egyptians. Blessed be the Lord, Jethro exclaimed, who rescued you from the power of Egypt and from the power of Pharaoh. He has rescued the people from under the power of Egypt. Now I know the Lord is greater than all gods, because he did wonders when the Egyptians acted arrogantly against Israel. Then Jethro, Moses' father-in-law, brought a burnt offering and sacrifices to God. And Aaron came with them and all the elders in Israel to eat a meal with Moses' father-in-law in God's presence. The next day, this is verse 13, the next day Moses sat down to judge the people, and they stood around Moses from morning until evening. When Moses' father-in-law saw everything he was doing for them, he asked, "What is the thing that you're doing for the people? Why are you alone sitting as judge while all the people stand around you from morning until evening?" Moses replied to the father-in-law, "Because the people come to me to inquire of God. Whenever they have a dispute, it comes to me, and I make a decision between one man and another. I teach them God's statutes and laws." "What you're doing is not good," Moses' father-in-law said to him. "You will certainly wear out both yourself and these people who are with you, because the task is too heavy for you. You can't do it alone. Now listen to me. I will give you some advice, and God be with you. You be the one to represent the people before God and bring their cases to him. Instruct them about the statutes and laws, and teach them the way to live, what they must do. But you should select from all the people able men, God-fearing, trustworthy, and hating dishonest profit. Place them over the people as commanders of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They should judge the people at all times. Then they can bring you every major case, but judge every minor themselves. In this way you will lighten your load, and they will bear it with you. If you do this, God so directs you, you will be able to endure, and also all these people will be able to go home satisfied." Moses listened to his father-in-law and did everything he said. So Moses chose able men from all of Israel and made them leaders over the people as commanders of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and tens. They judged the people at all times, and they would bring the hard case to Moses, but they would judge every minor case themselves. Moses let his father-in-law go, and he journeyed into his own land. Chapter 19. Israel and Sinai. In the 3rd month from the very day that Israelites left the land of Egypt, they came to Sinai wilderness. They traveled to Redhidim, came to the Sinai wilderness, and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountains. Moses went up to the mountain to God, and the Lord called to him from the mountain. "This is what you must say to the house of Jacob and explain to the Israelites. You have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle wings and brought you to myself. Now, if you will certainly listen to me and keep my covenant, you will be my own possession out of all the peoples, although the whole earth is mine, and you will be my kingdom of priests and my holy nation. These are the words that you are to say to the Israelites." So after Moses came back, he summoned the elders of the people and said before them all of these words that the Lord had commanded him. Then all the people responded together, "We will do all that the Lord has spoken." So Moses brought the people's words back to the Lord. The Lord said to Moses, "I am going to come to you in a dense cloud, so that the people will hear when I speak with you, and will always believe you." Moses reported the people's words to the Lord. And the Lord told Moses, "Go to the people and consecrate them today and tomorrow. They must wash their clothes and be prepared for the 3rd day. For on the 3rd day the Lord will come down on Mount Sinai in the sight of all the people. Put boundaries for the people all around the mountain, and say, 'Be careful that you don't go up on the mountain or touch its base. Anyone that touches the mountain must be put to death. No hands may touch him. Instead, he will be stoned or shot with arrows and not live, whether animal or human. When the ram's horn sounds a long blast, they may go up to the mountain.' Then Moses came down from the mountain to the people and consecrated them and washed their clothes. And he had said, 'The people be prepared for the 3rd day. Do not have sexual relations with women.' On the 3rd day, when the morning came, there was thunder and lightning, a thick cloud on the mountain, and a very loud trumpet sound, so that all the people in the camp shuddered. Then Moses brought the people out of the camp to meet God, and they stood at the foot of the mountain. Mount Sinai was completely enveloped in smoke, because the Lord had came down on it in a fire. Smoke went up like the smoke of a furnace. The whole mountain shook violently. As the sound of the trumpet grew louder and louder, Moses spoke, and God answered him in the thunder. The Lord came down on Mount Sinai at the top of the mountain Then the Lord summoned Moses to the top of the mountain, and he went up. The Lord directed Moses, "Go down and warn the people not to break through to see the Lord, otherwise many of them will die. Even the priests who come near the Lord must consecrate themselves, or the Lord will break out in anger against them." Moses responded to the Lord, "The people cannot come up Mount Sinai since you warned us. I put a boundary around the mountain and consecrate it." The Lord replied to him, "Go down and come back with Aaron, but the priests and the people must not break through to come up to the Lord, or he will break out in anger against them." So Moses went down to the people and told them. Chapter 20. We'll read this last chapter for today. Then God spoke out all these words: "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the place of slavery. Do not have any other gods besides me. Do not make an idol for yourself, whether in the shape of anything in the heavens above, or on the earth below, or in the waters under the earth. Do not bow and worship to them, and do not serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God, punishing the children for the father's iniquity to the third and fourth generations of those who hate me, but showing faithful love to 1,000 generations of those who love me and keep my commandments. Do not misuse the name of the Lord your God, because the Lord will not leave anyone unpunished who misuses his name. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy, and you are to labor 6 days and do all your work. But on the seventh day is the Sabbath to the Lord your God. You must not do any work. You, your son or your daughter, your male or female servant, your livestock, or your resident alien who is within the city gates. For the Lord has made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and everything in them in 6 days, and he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and declared it holy. Honor your father and your mother, so that you may have a long life in the land that the Lord your God is giving you. Do not murder, do not commit adultery, do not steal, do not give false testimony against your neighbor, do not covet your neighbor's house, do not covet your neighbor's wife, his male or female servant, his ox, donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor." All the people witnessed the thunder and lightning and the sound of the trumpet and the mountain surrounded by smoke. When the people saw it, they trembled and stood at the distance. "You speak to us, and we will listen," they said to Moses. "But don't let God speak to us, or we will die." Moses responded to the people, "Don't be afraid, for God has come to test you, so that you will fear him and will not sin." And the people remained standing at a distance, and Moses approached into the total darkness where God was. Then the Lord told Moses, "This is what you are to say to the Israelites. You have seen that I have spoken to you from heaven. Do not make gods of silver to rival me. Do not make gods of gold for yourselves. Make an earthen altar for me, and sacrifice on it your burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, your flocks and herds. I will come to you and bless you in every place where I cause my name to be remembered. For if you make a stone altar for me, do not build it out of cut stones. If you use your chisel on it, you will defile it. Do not go up on the altar do not go up to my altar on steps, so that your nakedness is not exposed on it." And that is the ending of chapter 20. Dang, it's getting good, y'all. It's getting good. Final thoughts. Yeah. People are people, man. We're going to murmur and complain, even though God gives us exactly what we want. We're going to complain. We're going to see if God's there or not, even though he totally brought us to a certain place. And this is just a history of how people were and are to this day. It's just crazy. All right, we'll be in chapter, 21? We'll be tomorrow on chapter 21. Let's get it, guys.